Welcome to the Hellenic Writers Group of Washington, D.C. My name is Andy Petridis. Today we are pleased to host Professor and author Maria Karametou to speak to us about her debut novel, The Amalgam. She will be introduced by Professor Patty Apostolides, a distinguished writer in her own right. There will be a question and answer session after the talk, so please let's welcome, without any further ado, Patty, the mic is yours. Would you please introduce our guest?
Thank you, Andy. I'm delighted and honored to introduce Maria Karametou. I've known Maria for many years and feel privileged to have watched her artistic and literary life unfold. I first met Maria through the Hellenic Writers Group when I was the director, and we were under the auspices of the Hellenic Society of Prometheus. We learned that her short story received recognition in the Bethesda magazine, a meaningful acknowledgement of the excellence of her writing. So we invited her to speak to the group at the Hellenic Center in Bethesda, where we were meeting at that time. Since then, she became an active member, generously sharing her work with the group. More recently, she contributed poems to our bilingual anthology, Glimpses of Our World, published in 2020, and recited her poetry at the Greek Embassy event in 2023. Now a little bit of her bio. Maria arrived in the United States from Athens as a first-generation immigrant and has built a remarkable multidisciplinary career as a visual artist, curator, teacher, poet, and now novelist. Her mixed media work has been shown around the world in museums and galleries from the U.S. to Germany, Greece, Russia, Bulgaria, Turkey, China, and Korea, and is held in public and private collections, including the Voris Museum of Contemporary Art in Athens, the Museum of Contemporary Art in Thessaloniki and Crete, the Holter Museum in Montana, and civic collections here at home. Her last solo exhibition, Kalos, was at the Katzen Museum in Washington, D.C. She has organized and curated international projects such as Echo Reflections in Ankara, and taken part in collaborative initiatives like Penelopia. Her honors include a Fulbright Research Scholar Award and first prize in the Maryland Biennial. She earned her BA from the University of Maryland, cum laude, and her MFA from the Maryland Institute College of Art, where she studied with Grace Hardigan and Salvatore Scarpita. As an educator, she served for many years at George Mason University in Northern Virginia, directing the drawing division. She retired in 2022 and is now professor emerita in the School of Art. Recently, Maria added a major new accomplishment to her wide-ranging body of work: The Amalgam, her debut novel published in March of 2026. The novel follows the lives of Meta and her family as she grows up under an authoritarian father and a submissive mother and follows her dream of becoming an artist. We also learn about her grandmother Metaxia and her life in Potamos, a peaceful village in Asia Minor, now Turkey. The book moves between parallel timelines, revealing how wartime destruction, forced departures, and resettlement reshape daily life and family responsibilities. I particularly like the details of the historical events and noticed how Maria's background as a textile artist enriched the narrative, as descriptions of needlework and other handicrafts are woven into the story's fabric, both literally and metaphorically. The novel is a memorial to lost communities and a testament to the resilience and dignity of those who rebuild their lives after destruction. An intimate, unforgettable exploration of belonging, identity, and the small acts that keep memory alive. Please join us in welcoming Maria Karametou.
Thank you. I appreciate all that introduction. I guess I should tell you a little bit about the book and my journey through that experience. As Patty said, the book takes place in 3 continents, actually 3 countries, the US, Greece, and Turkey. It revolves around the story of 2 strong women, an immigrant to the United States as a refugee to Greece from Asia Minor, and the family secret that binds them through their determination to defy the odds and live life on their terms. It's taken me several years to complete because I did a lot of historical research and visited the places I'm taking the readers to. I'm especially happy to share it with you today, not only because it involves an issue that is very pertinent and important to our times, immigration and refugee experiences, but also because many of us are Greek lovers or Greeks, and it revolves around our heritage and our common history here. So one of the questions people always ask me about this whole adventure I've gotten myself into is how all of a sudden I decided to become a writer, since I'm an artist and a professor. So the truth is I didn't really decide. I've written all my life. As a matter of fact, as a child, I used to hide under our dining room table in Athens. We had a long maroon tablecloth that came all the way to the ground. And I used to hide under there and tell myself stories and draw. And I think that was my hideout because I'm left-handed and I was always made fun of by the other children in Greece because at the time people made fun of left-handed people. It's a long time ago, obviously. Things have changed. But when I was asked what I wanted to be when I grew up, I always said I wanted to be an artist and an author. But somebody said to me along the line, you can't hide two watermelons under the same arm. So I said, yeah, I'm going to do it. But as I grew up, I found out that these things take time. Being an artist takes time in the studio forever. Then I had a family, had a child. I'm a professor. I was a professor until recently. And so I realized that I had to choose. So I became a visual artist and I became a frustrated writer. In fact, at one point, I started making my books instead as an artist books. They are little books like this and they close. They don't open because I haven't written my books. And they were shown all over the place, including the National Museum of Women in the Arts here in DC. So I wrote all my life. And I had, like Patty said, some things published, but I never pursued publication because I never took any writing lessons or anything like that. So I was very hesitant to do that. As far as this specific book is concerned, it's funny how some things come together in life. Like there's a lot of synchronicity sometimes that happens. My maternal grandparents were refugees to Greece from Asia Minor indeed. That was a personal experience. The Greeks call Asia Minor the western part of Turkey, as you know. So they came to Greece as refugees and they were the only survivors of their families. The rest were lost. I grew up with the stories of the lost places and the lost people. But they were, as you know, or you may know, they were prohibited from ever going back to Turkey, to the places where they were expelled from, per the Treaty of Lausanne that forbade them to ever go back. So when I got a visual arts fellowship to go to Istanbul to research Ottoman textile and embroidery designs, I grabbed the opportunity to go to their hometowns, and especially to my grandmother's village. And that changed my life. Of course, I couldn't find her house because you will see in the book that they don't, anyway, I don't want to talk about the plot too much, but it changed my life. And I thought to myself, I have to say something about this. I have to write about this. I started doing the historical research, and I found out that aside from us Greeks, because we know our history, because 1.2 million refugees poured into a country of 6 million at the time. Everybody in Greece knows about it because that had a huge impact on the country, socioeconomically and every other way. But what I found out as I started doing the book is that the general public knows very little about that part of history. And it's a very important part of history because it involves Eastern Mediterranean. I started writing the book in English because a lot of people ask me also, why, since English is your second language, why are you writing it in English? Write it in Greek. Well, I have my reasons, but that was one of them, that I needed to have the public know a little, whatever public reads the book, know a little bit about it. And also, I dedicated the book to my grandmother, as you may see if you read it, because my grandmother not only was a survivor, but also because she was expelled, she did not have the opportunity to have much education, but she was the kindest and wisest person I've ever known, and very, very strong to have survived through that whole thing. People ask me if it's a memoir because of the personal history that it involves. It's not a memoir, it's fiction. But in my writing experience, you write from observations, you write from images that you see. When I used to teach at George Washington University, I've done all the George Mason, Prince George's, anyway, I've done a lot of the George for some reason. But when I used to teach down there, I used to look at the people in the streets and try to imagine the story behind what we see. So it's not a memoir. It's just, things that you hear in the metro, overheard conversations or whatever. And of course, that was back when we used to talk to each other at the metro and didn't do this with our phones. But anyway, it's fiction. But I have to say, there are parts that are true in there that have happened. And I'll give you a small example. There is a part in the book where a man asks the woman, the main character, who is an immigrant, obviously, he said, I detect an accent. Are you from New Jersey? And this actually happened to me. Somebody asked me. And so I thought, I have to put that in the book. Because, I've been asked a lot of similar questions, but that was the most, So, but anyway, the book involved a great deal of historical research, and that's why it took so much time to write it. And when it comes to historical research, I had to cross-reference the information because one side said this, the other Turks say something else. Everybody writes a different history according to what they want to do. So it took me a great deal of time to kind of dig in and find out what really happened. For instance, in Greece, I went to the Center of Asia Minor Studies. I talked with survivors or descendants. In Turkey, I did the same. I did a lot of field research. I went to museums just to try to find the truth. And the truth is, I didn't find the truth. I don't think there is any truth because, like I said, everybody says whatever they want to say about it. But I guess what I found out is that the truth lies somewhere in between all that stuff. And you have to kind of figure it out yourself. But it took a long time because of the historical research. As far as, publishing, I didn't have confidence to publish it. And the only reason I overcame my hesitation had to do with the fact that on an impulse, I submitted a very early draft of the story to a Washington area writers, Columbia, Maryland, and Virginia competition of all writers. And I submitted it as a short story, and I got an award. And I thought, well, maybe I can write the book. Maybe I could write. And so what happened was I decided to leave my tenured position. It's not easy to leave a tenured position at a university, I have to tell you that. But I decided to leave my tenured position at the university to finish this book and devote more time to the studio, my exhibitions. And of course, in the interim, I had 2 grandchildren. My daughter had 2 little boys. That's how the journey started to kind of looking for a publisher and doing this. I don't know what else I can tell you. I can answer questions or read a couple of pages if you'd like.
Why don't you read a couple of pages? That would be nice. Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to read a little bit from the second chapter when the young main character talks with her grandmother. How do people whose lives have been split in half bring the 2 halves together? Is it hope that keeps them going? Is it hope that drew her grandparents to each other? Meta wonders as she replays in her mind their first meeting when an elderly widow and her unmarried sister introduced Nicholas to Metaxia. Did you fall in love with Papu when you first laid eyes on him, the way he did with you? Meta, ever curious about grown-up love, remembers asking her grandmother, certain that no one could resist her grandfather's hazel eyes and dark, wavy hair. She had seen how women looked at Nicholas and swayed their hips when they stopped him in the street looking for his advice about how to best mend what they could patch themselves, the bottom of a school sack or a purse, the insole of a shoe. And she had seen how children followed Nicholas around too, because he could move each ear by itself and make his thumb appear and disappear. And because he gave them treats from the candy tree he said was growing in his pockets, spending what little money he had on those treats, since his philosophy about money was that one must spend it so it does not weigh one down. I thought he seemed kind, Yaya Metaxia had vaguely replied, and Meta thought her grandmother's moist eyes held a loving yes. What I remember most is the widow's swollen ankles and how under her wrinkled skin the tiny veins looked like squiggly worms, Metaxia added. Meta laughed, thinking it a joke. But you loved him right from the start, didn't you? She insisted. Metaxia had not answered right away. It's not so simple, Meta, she finally said. Falling in love is different than learning to love. And then she explained that the first happens quickly and sometimes before you know it. The second takes time to grow, and because of that, it lasts. It's the one who lies next to you after the day's struggles are over. It's the one you have learned to love who will always be there, she said. Meta never dwelled on that answer. Her grandparents were nothing like each other, but they had both lost a lot and had seen even more. They crossed themselves, tied their lives together, and built a union that lasted 6 decades, 3 wars, 3 live children, 1 born dead, and 5 grandchildren.
That's beautiful.
Maria?
Yeah.
I had a question before we start the question and answer. There is a section where you describe your visit to Turkey, and was that from actual experience? It felt real. And then, was there a Potamos? Did you actually go there?
I did. As I said, while I was on the Fulbright, I stayed in Istanbul for 6 months, and I grabbed the opportunity to visit her hometown. As I said, that was a life-changing experience because I knew the town inside out from her stories.
You were describing that some women came and took you by the arm, and like, did you experience that? I mean,
Some of it, but like I said, a lot of it is imagination. You see a spark and it comes. The thing I have to say, and it is in the book, I think, that town, I don't want to say anything bad about anybody, but that town was nothing like what the Greeks left behind because it was dirty. It was, it was really bad. And I think with the exchange of the populations, they brought people from the Balkans to Turkey, as you know, and the people who were settled, and you will see that in the book partially, but the people who were settled in my grandmother's village came from the Balkans and they were villagers. They had a different culture. I mean, I saw the school that I describe.
Congratulations, Maria. I read it, and I was living every picture of your book, and I loved it. I know a little of our history, and I'm proud of you that you wrote history. Also, all the stories of those people that they suffered. I remember that when the cousins came to Athens. You didn't say how how
Metaxia.
yeah, how Meta, the young girl, got right away the passport. Was it easy to get a visa to go to America?
But it's in the book. I mean, I don't want to discuss the plot too much, but it's in the
Okay.
book how she escapes to her father to come to America.
Yeah, yeah, I know.
I mean, like if you come to visit a person in America, you can get a green card if you're gonna, you know the rules.
And the other thing, I couldn't see the details when they left from Turkey to Greece with the boat.
But it's also in the book.
Says, but not very in details what happened during their journey.
Oh, I see what you mean. I had to cut about 50, 60 pages from the book. It got to be, for instance, telling the story, the details of how they escaped. And Patty, I think, knows about that because this was from the early chapters that Patty read. I had to cut the pages because it got to be too long, and as you know, through the writing process, you go through several versions and drafts in order to come to the final.
Yeah.
So that's a good question because I like that part, I like that part of the escape and how they did it, and but it got to be too long. So.
And as you said, there are things that they don't let us know in details how the people were living this horrible situation. I have a friend here that her grandparents had the same story, and I loved the way that you wrote the book. I enjoyed it. And
Well,
thank you for this. I don't know if you know the lady that she wrote Not Even My Name. You remember this?
of course, Tia Halo. Yeah.
Yeah, when I read it, oh my God, I was crying the whole time that I was reading this book. I know the history. You have done a beautiful job.
Thank you. I have to say, yeah, those people, because you just said something about it, those people who left, they never talked about what happened to them.
I know.
They never wanted to share the experiences. It was too ugly and too painful, and they wanted to leave that behind, keep the nice memories, and leave all that, build a new life. And so the stories I grew up with, when I said I grew up with the stories of the lost people and the lost ones, the stories were never, look what they did to us. It was always, we did this and we had this celebration and we did this, and they didn't want, they put it all behind, they buried it,
I know.
and that's the sad part of it. But it also allowed me to see the place with different eyes.
Congratulations. It's a beautiful book.
Thank you.
And thank you for having this book.
Thank you, Calliope. There's a couple questions here. Maria Karametou and Stella. So we'll start with Maria's question. Can you explain your publication journey?
As I said, I was very hesitant to pursue publication because I wrote it in English, which is, again, not my first language. And it was not the easiest thing because writing it in, I'm going to say that before I address the other, writing it in English is a very straightforward language. Greek is very, very rich. We conjugate. We have a massive vocabulary. We have one word to say this and the same word to say. So it's a very complex language. So for me to write it in English, which contributed to the fact that I was hesitant to pursue publication since I never had any training in writing, for me to write it in English took a long time because I had to find the right man-to-task interface, if you will. In other words, to find the word in English that described what I wanted to say in my Greek mind. Of course, I write in English directly also. That was the first thing. The second thing to publication that Maria is asking has to do with the fact that I'm used to a different field. Our field is very different. I didn't realize what the writing field involves. So what I had to do, aside from writing the book, which took a lot, to find a publisher who was reputable and didn't just want money. There are a lot of pitfalls in that. I had to learn a lot in order to publish with the people I wanted to, and I found very active and small. They operate traditionally. And so they did a great deal of things for me. For instance, everybody is commenting the book about the book cover. My grandmother reared silkworms, so she did a lot of embroideries and textiles and so on and so forth. Part of the reason I wanted to go and research that, she asked me to send her some embroideries, and I did. And she did the whole cover. So the path to publication, I found, is very complicated in writing. Our field, meaning the visual arts field, is much more straightforward. There are a lot of pitfalls that I had to learn about. So I had to ask a lot of questions. I had to do a lot of research, many hours to try to, find how these things are done. I'm hoping I'm answering your question, Maria.
Thank you.
Stella has a question.
Congratulations again on your publication and the story. Not familiar exactly, but we're familiar with some of the facts you mentioned. I'm curious, though, when my sister and I went on a tour to find our father came from Foki outside of Smyrna. Unfortunately, we hadn't done research for downtown Smyrna, and we wanted to find the Greek neighborhood. So I'm asking you, we were away from our guide. We left the group and we're doing our own thing. And we went to hotels thinking we had a map and it showed where the Jewish section was. I'm not sure how they called it. And we couldn't find anything about Greek section. So we went to hotels asking them, and the people there just weren't even familiar with, not even to say, we heard of it. We don't know exactly where it is. So we went on our own.
They know. They
didn't tell us. So we walked all over.
I don't want to say anything bad about anybody. I found the Turks to be very, very nice people, very hospitable and very nice. I don't know it was because of my role there as a Fulbright student from America, but I don't think so. I think they're genuinely very nice, but they know.
Where is it?
The problem is that they're taught a different history.
Mhm.
They are taught about, for instance, they're taught about the fact that, like they say, oh, we had the same fate. I don't want to offend anybody. I'm just stating a fact. They did have the same fate because the Treaty of Lausanne mandated the exchange of populations between Greece and Turkey. But there were 1 million Greeks. There were millions of Armenians, Jewish people, all kinds of people who were expelled from Turkey under violent circumstances, whereas the people who came from the Balkans or from Crete and other places in Greece to Turkey were thousands. And we didn't kill them. We put them in boats and let them go. Did you say something about Phokia?
Yes.
You know what happened in Phokia?
Well, I did research that, but now I can't remember it. I think I wrote about it a little bit.
They started, I mean, it was horrible what they did. I don't want to tell you. Maybe you should read about it.
I'll go look at my research work.
It started early. It started around 1915, before the World War.
Mm-hmm.
And it started in Phokia.
Yeah.
It's also in the book.
Yeah,
So.
right. Well, so I don't have to look at mine. I can just look yours up.
But it's not nice.
Thank you, Stella. Just
Thank
so
you.
you know, Stella has also written a book that has its own story to tell and her journey to America. So we have a lot of talent here, and it's nice to see that.
Thank you first of all for a wonderful presentation, and thanks, Patty, for introducing Maria so nicely. I've read the book, and sometimes, we live our lives, which is made up of little puzzles sometimes, and we don't know when the right pieces will fall into place. So when I read this book, for me, I'm having goosebumps. It meant so much more than reading words on a page or a nice story, nicely written, and everything was just perfect. For me, my family comes from a similar background. I'm not going to go to my own book now. But they are from the groups of traumatized people, the displaced Greeks who didn't say a word. I know nothing much about the origins of my family, which came from the same area in Asia Minor. So reading this book filled in such a tender way, in such a sensitive way, so many gaps that I had in my own life, because I don't know nothing from my own family. So thank you so much. You did so much more than write a book. I know it took you years, as you said, to bring in all the historical facts. That's why it is so genuine. And it gave me a sort of closure of the things I didn't hear from my own parents, grandparents. Thank you so much. I applaud you, and I am really grateful. Thank you so much, Maria. Again, I'm having tears in my eyes because it really touched me so deeply. Thank you.
These are stories that need to be told. And I appreciate what you're saying. In wars, nobody wins, really. We lose so much. And look what's happening right now all over the world. What are we gaining from doing this? I have a friend who is a Greek author, and she said one day we were talking, not about this book, this was a long time ago. She put her fist on the table and she said, that's it. We're not going to have any more wars. That's it. I declare that we're not going to, and it's like, it's a utopia. Nobody wins, really, I don't think. Because I think, honestly, the Turks lost a lot by losing the minorities that lived there. Because they were prosperous, they were contributing, they were loyal Ottoman subjects. They paid their minority fees.
Do you know the work of the author Catherine Gauci?
No.
Oh, she's not Greek, but she lived in Greece. She is also a textile artist. She lived in Greece, in Athens, for a number of years designing carpets. She researches her novels incredibly as well. She's written one about the same topic.
I'm not a textile artist. I'm a mixed media artist.
Okay. It's called The Carpet Weaver of Ushak. It's a story of two women.
I've read it.
I thought, yes. If you hadn't, thought you'd be interested in it.
Yeah, but I don't remember it. And I didn't remember.
You have your own stories to tell.
No,
what you're talking about is a kind of story repeated over and over again. My husband's mother was born in former Yugoslavia, but was of German background. And, that was kind of their story as well. Her family had left by the Second World War, but people were displaced.
I wasn't going to say anything, but I posted something on Facebook to an Asia Minor community. They're going to think this is self-promotion. I got 750 responses. I'm still kind of so far anyway. So it just blew my mind, because it's like there's so many people. There are a lot of people who share this. And as I was saying earlier, I don't think I'm going to repeat what I said earlier, but maybe I should. Should I? Somebody wrote me and she said, you should go to Hollywood and tell them to to make a movie out of it, because people who need to know about this story. How do you go to I'm going to go to Hollywood and all of a sudden this is going to be a book. The book is
Yes, why not? I'm telling you,
things don't happen that easily. I'm relating to what Sharon is saying, in that a lot of people share the same history. The same with the Jewish people during Second World War, the same with all the displaced people.
They made movies about this history, and it's stupid. I don't know. I don't want to say which one, but I was so mad when I saw this movie, and they marketed so well. It's ridiculous. You should do that.
I don't know what movie you're talking about, because the one I've seen was very nice.
Which one?
1922 was one of them. That was brutal. The Greeks have made series about it. Spini mu agapimeni is one book.
It was another one, but I don't remember the name. Somebody in America they made it, and it was so rubbish. Anyway, I think you should try.
No, I don't think so.
Maria, congratulations. I know the effort that goes into pulling out a book like that. So congratulations. I haven't read it yet. I'm going to order it as soon as our session is over, and I really look forward to reading it. I wanted to ask you two things. How do you feel now that it's actually out in the world? And then two, will you consider translating it into Greek? Because I feel like it should be easy for you. And I think a lot of Greeks who have that history, they'll want to read it. So
it came out the 24th of March. So I've been doing these things nonstop since then. So I really can't answer how I feel. I'm completely sort of in a daze because it's been too intense. And as far as translate, it's very, very, actually, these people are asking me also, when is it coming out in Greek? That'll take a lot of time. I'm a visual artist. I have to go back to the studio. I have shows coming up that I have to do. That's what I identify with. I didn't expect this to happen. So I don't know how to deal with it. I mean, I feel good, but the truth about translating it in Greek, somebody told me that you can't translate your own book in Greek. You have to have someone else translate it. And I'm trying to process that, because if that book gets translated, it'll be me who translates it, because I know how to do this, the right word is. But on the other hand, I just don't think I have the time to do this. I'm very conflicted because everybody's asking me the same question.
Maybe when you've recovered a little bit from this intense period, and your life gets back to normal somewhat, maybe somebody else will just offer to buy it and do the Greek version, and then you check it, because you'll know if they've translated it. I mean, you get the final say as to the words.
That's
because
for sure.
They're not going to get it as perfect as you, but if they can do the heavy lifting and the time-consuming work, well, you'll see. You'll see.
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, that's one possibility. It's the same like editing a book in English. You have editors and they tell you cut 50 pages, or something like that. But I don't know. Hopefully, maybe. I don't know. It's still too soon.
I'm sorry I was late and I missed your presentation, because I have a short story that I wrote that has to do with the Treaty of Lausanne. And you might have gone over this, and I'm sorry if you did. How did you promote your book?
I didn't really do much promotion myself. They did a lot.
Who's they?
The publisher.
Oh, yours is published through a company. Okay, I thought it was self-published. Okay.
Oh, no. I don't have the patience to do that.
The difficulty with self-publishing is the marketing.
I'm not going to lie. I have to do some publicity myself. Of course I do. Everybody, even the best-known writers, do their own publicity. One of the people who gave endorsement husband, she's like a best-selling author internationally, and I just saw her doing her own publicity, partially.
Doesn't the publishing company set up these publicity events for you?
Not so much the small publisher, no.
I
The small
see.
publishers, the indie publishers are, for instance, they operate traditionally. Like I will get or have gotten a little bit of royalties. I mean, they operate traditionally, so that you get royalties, you get the book cover, you get editing, all that for free because they're investing in their authors. But I have to do some too. I mean, I'm doing this right now. I mean, this is publicity. I have to do it. So I think I never thought that I would give it to a big five. I mean, I'm not. It's ludicrous. They're not going to look at me. But small publishers, if they operate traditionally, do things. I can't do self-publishing. It takes too much.
What publisher did you do?
Vine Leaves Press. They have offices in Germany, Greece, the United States, and many places.
All right, thank you.
This was a very interesting talk, and I wish you the best of luck, Maria. You've done a remarkable job on your book, and I hope we hear that in the future you write another one.
I'm getting older, Patty. I don't,
Well, that doesn't stop anyone. Peter Pottas, I don't know if you remember him. He was 83 when he joined our group. And
who was that?
Dr. Pottas. He was 83 when he joined our group. And by the time he passed away at the age of 91, he had written 3 books.
Wow.
So that is an inspiration if it's not.
Did he have a family?
Oh, yeah. He had grandchildren. Yeah, he was from Bethesda. He will come to our meetings every time. So
We'll see.
yeah, thank you.
They invited me to come and share this
That was
journey
fun.
with you.
That was enjoyable. And I hope everybody gets a chance to read her book. It is worthwhile reading. She's not only an artist, she's a poet. There's a lot of poetry in there.
Thank you both for really carrying through so nicely, so professionally. Thank you, Maria, for opening your heart to us. And thank you, Patty, for introducing Maria. And thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for attending this beautiful talk. And this part of the meeting is now adjourned.